In this video, we'll be discussing high-impact resume design. Now, for the purposes of your role, you'll be using a resume template that we provide, so you don't have to worry about necessarily applying the principles we discuss in this section. The main reason we're including this section is because oftentimes clients will have questions about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to putting together a resume. So hopefully this just gives you some of the verbiage that you can use to explain these concepts to clients, if that ever does come up during consultations and so forth. So when thinking about resume design, there's essentially two questions we want to keep in mind. The first is, what image do you want to convey? When we are applying for a job, and particularly because we are working with executives, we want to make sure that the image they're conveying is very professional, clean cut, and polished. And then the second thing is what will make your resume as easy to read as possible. So really incorporating those elements of skim value, whether it's through headings or appropriate margins and spacing. Let's run through a quick list of do's and don'ts when it comes to resume design. So the thing we definitely want to do is use a simple and straightforward design. There really is no need to try to stand out using fancy fonts or a lot of colors, graphics, and that sort of thing. Especially at the executive level, we almost don't want the format to draw attention to itself. Really, the focus should be on the client's skills and their achievements throughout their career. We'll also want to incorporate skim value. So as I mentioned, headings, bullet points, margins, and spacing, all of those document design features that really just make the resume easy to skim. And lastly, we use a serif font. So studies show that serif fonts are just easier for people to read and process. And if you think about the fonts that books are written in, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be a serif font, and it's exactly for that reason. So what we don't do is include a photo or any graphics, especially in the UK and the US markets. Having a photo on your resume or CV tends to be frowned upon. If you are working with a client who's based in one of the European countries or in the Middle East, for example, if local convention permits a photo, then definitely you can feel free to include one, but otherwise that's not something you have to worry about. The second thing we don't do is use multiple colors. Again, don't need to stand out with formatting. Tables, multiple column symbols, all of those things we cut out, partially also because having things such as graphics or tables can really impact how the document is imported into an applicant tracking system. So if we are using a 2-column document, for example, it can import incorrectly and all of the text could end up being jumbled. So here we just see a few examples of what we don't do. You may have seen these types of formats and templates floating around the internet. Especially given the fact that we're working with executive clients, these would just be, to put it bluntly, inappropriate. Perhaps if someone is applying for a position in, graphic design or a creative field, then this would be used, but that just isn't where most of our client base falls. And then the other thing that tends to be a pet peeve of mine when it comes to these designs is that a lot of times you'll just have these skills sections, right, where the candidates are rating themselves on a 1 to 5 scale, and then same thing you see with the languages at the bottom. But really it's on a 1 to 5 scale compared to who? So if someone rates themselves as a 3 out of 5 in Excel, compared to the other candidate who applied, they might be a 5 out of 5, right? So a lot of times it's just much more effective and also more believable to provide those examples of how you used Excel within the workplace. And that will just give recruiters a much clearer picture than rating yourself a 3 or a 4 out of 5. So this is what the template that you'll be using looks like. As I said, it is very straightforward, clean cut, and neat. That's really the look that we're going for, and that's what candidates see when they go on our website and look at the samples that we provide. So to make your life easier and to stay consistent across the board, this is the template that you'll be sticking with. We very, very rarely have a client come back and tell us that they didn't like the formatting or the design. But if that does become an issue, then definitely just let us know. Sometimes it ends up being minor tweaks, using a different font, right? Or perhaps adding boxes with shading for the headings. So those kinds of things we can definitely help you out with. But we'll go through this template in a bit more detail so you can see some of the features we've built into it just to help you focus on actually producing content as opposed to playing around with formatting to make sure that all of the dates are aligned and so forth. So again, hopefully this section just gives you a broader understanding of our view of what makes an effective resume. So if these conversations ever do come up with clients, you can explain them as we discussed.